I quoted about 71,000. Yeah. And that, yeah, that's a good number to go off of. Some things changed if we don't do creek art, obviously, and then the 4,000 left over from community projects would go, but I think that was accounted for. So 71,000.
Okay.
I'm going to stick with that number.
Ava, whenever we have discussions like this, would it be possible to have the running balance of like the total funds that are available? Like the 71K, I know we can't just spend it, but just to know, like for the next 2-year plan, in theory, this might be possible or this is spendable. So that when I look, I look at these numbers here, this is money, if I'm understanding it correctly, that's already been.
Earmarked, essentially. Yeah.
Right. And so if we do have new projects or new opportunities present themselves, it's not clear to me now that you mentioned 71, I remember, right? But could we have that information with this information? So that when we consider the
It wouldn't
possibilities?
go in the PAPP, so that's just what's outlined on this page.
Right.
But yes, I can kind of,
Could be an NB, like just a little note on the bottom. Is that legal to do that?
I don't know. But at least I can have it in my head so that we can
Yeah.
chat about it too. And if the committee wanted to, for a long time, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was no PAPP budgeting process. And so I think the committee was really kind of sitting on a lot of money and there was no process to spend it. And so that's when the PAPP process was developed. The committee, if they wanted to spend $70,000 in the next 2 years, they could. That is an option. If they wanted to sit on it and wait for a bigger project to install another Bruce Beasley sculpture somewhere, they could do that too. So it's
Okay.
really up to the committee on how much they want to spend. But going back to the work plan, really being realistic of staff time,
Yes.
committee time and commitment, and what's feasible. So there's what I was trying to get at too is that there's plenty of wonderful projects where we could bring to the city. Like I mentioned, the utility boxes, that was an idea that came out of here to research that opportunity again. It came up a while ago, but it recently came up, I believe, from the now, I think it came up from the mayor. And so that's not going to cost very much money at all, but.
And we
but could
don't
be a-
have, I think, from what I remember from the last round with utility boxes is, we don't have that many utility boxes. And it didn't seem that,
I haven't done a count. That could be,
that could be.
Step
thing, but
one.
I seem to remember that there weren't enough utility boxes, the utility companies weren't interested. Because of
or
that.
trash cans, that was another thing, is decorating trash cans. So those are smaller projects that still would really add a lot of art to Albany.
But I mean, projects like that, each one needs a champion. so
Does
to
need a
speak.
champion,
Yeah,
I like
exactly.
that.
Someone has to take that on.
Yes.
And
So that's kind of what I was.
It's always been a challenge.
Right, and that's one thing I want to do at the meeting today, and also kind of asked in the email that I sent out too, is think about what you're passionate about, what art, how do you want to increase visibility and awareness of local artists in Albany? I did, going back up to the top of the list too, I just identify 2 additional pieces and locations on there, keeping it very vague that if, I don't know how you and Andrew feel about it. It's been a long process this first time, but our hope is that it wouldn't be
Yeah.
the next time. But you do also have to think, if you put that RFP out in 2 years, you also have 3 that are taking off at the same time, so
So we
kind of
could stagger
scheduling them.
maybe, yeah.
Yeah. Does that,
Yeah.
identify 2 additional
And-
pieces?
and
And
I-
it doesn't say the location, so
Right.
that's something the committee could decide upon too.
That kind of dovetails with the Economic Development Committee, doesn't it? Because I think we were talking at an earlier meeting about identifying the Solano Avenue and San Pablo as another space for art. Getting us off of the Ohlone Greenway. So sidewalk installation is somewhat easier.
Right, right.
Okay.
Right.
Just saying. Can we move on to fall into haiku?
I'm happy to keep doing that.
Great. I have some thoughts about funding. I know there's a haiku society in Japan that might
The
Are you
plan is
looking-
to ask the Albany Community Foundation for
Okay, great.
a stipend. Becca's asking, and I'm
Great.
asking too. The thing about Fall into Haiku is that since the city attorney put the, what's the kibosh? Is that the-
Kibosh, you put the kibosh.
We can't use currently, we can't use the Art in Public Places Fund for the Fall into Haiku program, so we need to find alternative funding.
Right, until we research and
I'll work on
update the
that.
Art in Public Places ordinance,
Until we revise it.
until we revise
They
it.
approve it. yeah.
Yes, and they
It's not
approve
going to happen this year.
Okay. Who's collaborating with the Economic Development Committee?
That
Brandon
was,
and Peter, yeah,
Brendan and me, yeah.
yeah,
I'm happy to keep doing that. I kind of dropped the ball this last year, but I will
that'd be great.
recommit.
That's great.
Can I be your assistant?
Yes.
And Cheryl,
Yep,
you up?
I'm up for it.
Great, I'll be your
absolutely.
backup.
Terrific.
If unless somebody wants to be backup, it's really, really fun, actually, having people hang their art, for me as a non-artist. Poet laureate, Peter, what do you think?
Yeah, that kind of goes in with the
Yeah.
the haiku program, so, yeah, that's fine.
Did
And-
you want any backup, what'd you call it, wingman, wingwoman for that, or do you feel
I
like?
don't think I really need it. I mean, I think when the time comes, if there's stuff to do, I'd like to be able to come to the committee and say, I need some help with this, that, or the other thing.
Okay.
But, otherwise, I don't think so.
Yeah, okay.
Film Fest?
So, the Film Fest, I'm a little, I'd be willing to give that up.
Little burnt, huh?
Well,
You're
it's
just a
I've-
liaison.
I have too many things to do, so.
Yeah, no, I get it. You're the liaison.
I am the liaison, and,
You're not the organizer of the fest.
no, but I am called upon, I go to meetings and I keep abreast of what's going on. I have some hosting duties, and through my company, since we're a book publisher, I have ties with graphic design, production, so I help them with all the production that is done. And I can still do that just as sort of a favor to them, but I don't want to have to go to meetings or do all this other stuff. I don't want to feel a sense of obligation to yet another organization, so I'd
And
like to.
What is do you remember the process? I mean, you've been doing this role for a while.
Yeah.
It started as an outside committee event, and then when the city really made the policy that committees don't do events, it became a city event.
That's
So-
recently,
That's
yeah,
recently. So you're kind of a volunteer representing the Arts Committee as well.
Yeah, I don't really feel actually that I'm much representing the Arts Committee.
Right,
I
so-
give you guys a report, but
Right.
none of the things that we discuss really have anything to do with public art.
Right.
It's more like I'm just another pair of hands or another opinion at the meetings. I watch the films and help them screen. I could do that as a volunteer. I don't have to do that here, but I'd be willing to step back, particularly if someone on the committee was super interested in films, because the film festival is evolving. They want to make it, there's thought of making it bigger and making it eventually self-sustaining, kind of a nonprofit thing, the way that some of the larger film festivals do. That'll probably take quite a few more years. But it'd be good to get some other people involved in it, because it's really the same committee that's doing it now, has been doing it for the last 9 years, and it'd be good to have new people involved to bring new energy and continuity.
Well, it seems to me like at this point, it would behoove all of us to tell everybody about the opportunity to work on the arts, on the film festival with the film festival people. We just need a liaison to
Well,
report back
we
to
don't
us.
really need a liaison.
We don't even need a
I mean, we
liaison.
could just strike that from it, and then if I'm inclined to volunteer next year,
Exactly.
I will, and if not, I won't, and then
Well, and
just
if you don't, they can
pull it
also,
off of
we
the
can
Arts
ask
Committee.
one of them to come to our meetings and present as well.
Sure.
In February or March or anytime they want information, they can either send it to me and we can put it on the agenda or.
Yeah,
I mean, I'll probably
That
be
is an
involved
option.
to some extent, but I don't want to be involved to the extent I am now.
yeah, so
Why
that's,
don't we just pull that off
Pull
of
it
the
off,
Arts
okay.
Committee?
it's a good idea.
Nobody else wants to take it.
That's actually, yeah.
Yeah.
doesn't-
If
I
somebody-
would be, but it'd be conflict of interest.
This year, or for every year?
Well, I usually generate something, but I haven't, this, haven't even thought about next year, but I certainly can't do it now.
Right.
I mean, they would never turn you down as a volunteer.
Yeah, but-
In any case,
I
so,
know,
yeah.
but I'm not
Even if
available
she
for that.
submits
Right.
films.
yeah, no,
you'd
I
be able
understand.
to-
If you want to be in the jury pool, then you really should step back.
Would Lisa be able to be a volunteer in any capacity, as if she just recused herself for the?
Probably, yeah,
Thing.
I'm sure. I mean, there's ways of doing it. I mean, they can always use more people or something.
Did that make sense?
Not really.
Yeah.
Definitely, if you were judging the films and you had a submission, that would be a conflict of
Yeah.
interest. So if you recused yourself for that portion of it, I was asking Peter, what other things do volunteers do if you volunteer for the film
I can't think of
festival?
any other
That's the
situation
biggest
where
one.
there's a filmmaker who's actually in the mix
Right.
and helping out. There are past filmmakers who are, now judges or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I understand what you're saying.
So why don't we just make sure that we tell everybody we know, or if anybody says, I'm really interested in film, steer them towards the,
Yeah,
That's the
I mean, I
support.
think the easiest thing is just to take it off the
Yeah,
Arts
take it off
Committee,
this.
docket and
Yeah.
let
Good call.
people do what they want on their own.
Sounds good.
Now, Peter, it sounded like you had written something
Oh,
about the public art notification process?
yeah, well, I mean, just in terms of the public art master plan, the art and public places ordinance, which are basically interrelated, they're completely related to each other. I think one of the things that has emerged over the last couple of years is that we feel that we're very confined by the master plan identifying public art as only visual art, general on a horse in a park sort of thing, and there's a lot more that public art can be. It could be ephemeral, it could be performance, it could be literary, it could be musical, and we're not allowed to use any of the Art and Public Places Fund for those kinds of purposes. And
I just want to repeat that to you. Because we are not allowed to use any public money for anything that isn't permanent public visual art.
yeah, and it's kind of defined,
music,
actually, rather specifically in the master plan itself.
And the reasoning behind that is that there's any development over $300,000 has the option to put public art on their property. If they decide that they don't want to do that, then they donate 1.75% to the city for public art. So because they have to do public art on it's earmarked for public art on their property, it has to, when it goes into the fund, the Arts Committee can only spend it on public art. So the
called
question has come up before about, what about performing art? What about
Yeah.
other types of
Well,
art?
I mean, that certainly has something to do with it, the fact that the building, the property developers had to have something to show for the money that they were kicking into the city. But I think it was also having to do with the fact that it was done 10 years ago
Yeah.
by a group of people whose sense of public art was more traditional.
Yeah.
And that's not a knock on them, because they really did a great job on it. But I think the sentiment that is that we should expand the notion of public art and figure out how to make it work in the master plan, and then make sure that that is represented in the Art and Public Places ordinance and whatever language the city uses to govern the expenditure of funds from the Public Arts Fund.
This is what I was thinking of. I know that the language is that it's in lieu funds, and the in lieu part means that it has to be a matchup between what would be required of the builder, which is a piece of public art. So in lieu would be a piece of public art. So I wonder whether you can change it on the builder's side. Like if the builder said, our contribution will be a film festival, our contribution will be a public concert series, or a theatrical production. If that contribution, so we could either change it on that side, and then in lieu would mean any of those things. Or if we took the in lieu out of the ordinance and said, and if we define art as this visual plus performance art.
Well, I mean, I think that's maybe the mechanism for doing it, but I think what we're talking about here is setting the goal for what this, for what
Yes.
our activity in regard to the master plan, the ordinance is going to be this year, and I think it should be to, well, it's already said here, to include performance art, but even that, I think, is a little bit limiting. I think what I would suggest we do is we set up a subcommittee to go through the master plan, the ordinance, and the public arts fund language to see what needs to be adjusted and how can it be
Right.
done in the best way possible to achieve this particular goal.
Okay, I thought that phrase "in lieu" was the key phrase.
I don't know. I mean, it could very
That's
well
the
be.
research, I guess, that needs to be
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
This language here is a draft, so if you would like it to be more general or more specific, please
Yeah,
propose.
I
what
guess
you-
I would. I mean, performance art, to me, immediately suggests,
A dance for spring.
yeah, a dance for spring, a tree, a Pfeiffer tree,
So
right?
maybe we take out, just end it at, update the art and public places ordinance,
Yeah,
period.
I think just keep it
Okay.
really vague, because I'm not sure where we're going to end up.
Right.
I'd work with you on that if you want to work on that.
Yeah, yeah.
Do
Well,
that.
and then,
Great.
as a kind of unrelated piece of that, we have this public art notification process that we need to add into the public art master plan to cover us in the case where we had the Albany Loop and a lot of the neighbors were objecting to the way the whole thing came down on their neighborhood. So that we can, it goes back to what Cheryl was saying about the, kind of the geological nature of getting public art through the city. So this be yet another notification process that we would have to go through for these community art projects. And so we just have a draft. I draft up this language that we don't have to go through now, but when we're going through the master plan and the ordinances to, look at all the different pieces and just revise the whole thing at once to include the expansion of the notion of what public art is, and also to, provide the public art notification process and anything else that has been neglected for the last 10 years.
And
So
was
it's kind of a
your
big
idea
job.
to go through it as a subcommittee or to do hire someone?
Wow, can we do that?
That's $71,000.
Yeah, see, it would use our money. I would
I
feel
mean,
like
isn't that what was done in 2010, correct?
Yeah, we hired somebody, but that's before we had a public art fund to pay for it. So the public art fund, as far as I know, I mean, if they can't pay for haiku, they
why would
can't
they
pay for
that?
consultant.
I agree. Along with
Yeah,
the haiku.
so
So I-
it would have to go to council and be approved and, yeah. And I
Yeah.
have sent a couple emails to find out what that would cost, but again, you could keep it very vague and just say,
Yeah, I'd be interested in that, but I think maybe the first step is for Jenny and I to kind of go through it and,
Andy said he'd
See
be
you.
into that too, sorry.
oh, good.
Speak up, Andy.
I'd be happy to
Great,
be.
fabulous, all right. So then if we can all go through and identify where we think the defects are, and then see if we need to hire someone or not.
Okay.
Maybe it's,
so I'm putting the three of you down for both of those then? Is that
Great,
all right?
thank you.
Okay, yeah, that's great. And then for the master plan, perhaps we keep it the same as the language as the ordinance and research, discuss, and update the public arts master plan, period,
yeah,
to keep it more general.
yeah.
Yes.
Don't let them know what we're really doing.
So that actually brings up a good point, is that don't have the date quite yet, but that the April probably 15th meeting, city council meeting, will be Jenny, and if you would like to invite someone else to come, but there will be 3 or 4 committees that will go to the council, committees or commissions go to council and present their work plan. And the Arts Committee is the only committee that has a PAPP because they have the Art and Public Places Fund.
They
So-
like us, right?
I think so.
Sort of.
Yeah. To be
Little
determined.
suspicious.
Yeah.
Sometimes they like us.
So as I understand it, I haven't been through this process, but you have about 3 to 5 minutes. They will have both the work plan and the PAPP, and if they have questions, you'll go up to the microphone and they will ask you some questions or clarifying And if they don't, then it just passes. But,
Great.
so, does that sound okay, Jenny?
It sounds okay if somebody will go through it with me a little bit beforehand.
Yeah. Or even, I mean, if Peter, if you're available to come too, just to speak to the,
Yeah, I
Any of
just feel like
those?
not so
Brandon?
fluent in language of the city.
Sure, yeah, whatever
You and I
need.
can talk about it,
Yeah.
I can either go and you Greek, whatever.
it is
Jenny,
most,
what about these possible additions? Is there anything that you think could be added to our?
Yeah,
work
I
plan?
actually have a couple of utility bond mosaics on trash cans. I do. It's under the identify the site for public art installation. Now, that's actually vague enough. I have a couple of other sites I think we should really look at. And I guess one would be, and another one, and I don't know how we could do this legally, but is can we collaborate with other cities, with neighboring cities? Can we collaborate with Berkeley? Can we collaborate with El Cerrito? To create, I don't know how we would do it. I don't even know if that's something we want to even spend any time at all looking into. To spend any kind of money on,
match.
yeah, match or talk to each other or, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how it would. San Pablo flows through all three cities. The Albany Greenway flows through all three cities. Maybe there's more, maybe there are grants to be had if we collaborate that we split. I'm not sure. This is a very vague notion.
Well, I did put down just picking one of the top 12 priority sites and
Yes.
reviewing in the master plan, there is a list and it prioritizes the sites based on their score. And the top 12 is kind of the magic number that we've identified. The sculpture loan program can't be on one of the top 12. They're kind of these sacred 12 spots that are earmarked for something grand. But so that was what I thought too, or just put down is that could be an option of, all 4 gateways, so all 4 entrances, Solano and San Pablo have been identified, or I should say also Marin, Buchanan. So that could be an option. That obviously would have a big dollar sign attached to it, but.
I also think that we're working with the creeks a lot, and I think that bridge, I mean, my favorite spot would be to really work with the city of Berkeley and do something really great at the bridge at the Albany Greenway over Cordonisas Park, where there's a quail on the Berkeley side and a quail on the Albany side, and needs to be cleaned up. And then there's going to be another right at the border where Cordonisas goes between Canes and San Pablo. It's going to be a park. They're going to open it up. It's open, but it's been boarded up, so no one can see it. It's another above-ground creek. And there's going to be, there's a park plan in place for it.
It's
that I
in
think the
Berkeley,
city
though.
of Berkeley's
Yeah,
doing.
okay.
Yeah, so, but it's Berkeley and it's Albany. So that would be another amazing site. I don't know if that's on our list of 12 sites. And if it's not, it means it's okay, right? We can do whatever we want on it.
No, but the 12 sites are priorities for the Arts Committee to put,
Oh,
to
okay.
focus on and
Okay.
pick a gateway or to pick, yeah.
Yeah, I like those creek gateways, I do.
So you're suggesting that we identify a site and a project to go on that particular site?
It's a possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if we determine there's enough money to
Money
do
to do that.
something like that, it'd be good to put it in the,
Put it in the work plan.
put it in the work plan
Got
as a,
I
investigate.
see.
Exploratory, instead of making it a commitment.
I would, maybe in a similar vein, just because I already put some time into it, I'd like to take a stab at the BART
Yes, please.
item.
Yes.
And just
yes, yes,
to
yes.
see what, we can draft in the next year or two. And I also saw down on here at the very end, I don't know exactly how we would maneuver this, but I would like to support the Jackson Street mural that Carol Fitzgerald approached us about
And so she
last year.
proposed,
In
I took
some way, some fashion, I think it would be nice to support that.
So she proposed this site. She came in November and proposed her mural, but really what the November meeting is for is just to propose a site. For the new members, I'll also go through the process, right? There's always a process. Is that Carol Fitzgerald is a wonderful artist, and she came, and she lives near here, I believe, and she has a wonderful mural envisioned for this site. However, the Arts Committee, because, backing up, if it was under $10,000, she could have come in through the community projects process. That process was identified for smaller projects because there's no selection committee. And so it was kind of faster, quote unquote faster. If you take the Albany Loop, much bigger project, that had to have a selection committee, a selection panel selected from various community groups, community members, and it had to go through kind of a more arduous process. So Carol presented this site. Her budget was just a little over $20,000. So if the committee decided that this was a spot that they wanted to put some money aside to, and that would be, the committee would have to decide on that, they could do that, but then the next step would be to put an RFP out, and any artist could apply to put art on this property. So it's, it goes through the same process essentially. So she's proposing this site as a wonderful place for art. I totally agree. But it is a process, so she's
we
So
not.
the danger is some other artist could come in
Yeah,
with
some
a
other
better
could do
plan.
something, and then all of that, yeah.
So really, you have to think about it in terms of location. Is this a location that the Arts Committee wants to put art and put money towards? You know, you guys could choose $10,000 and do, you know, a community project-like process where or 15,000. It doesn't have to be 21,000 or whatever her budget was, but.
So if just out of curiosity, if she's able to completely self-finance that project through whatever means, how does it get approved? Does it come through us, or does it go straight to city council, or, because it's a public wall?
Right.
Public wall.
So how would
Well,
it,
it's city property, right? So it would have to go through a process, and I'm not exactly sure how that differs from if the artist is requesting all funding come from the city versus, hey, I have this project and I'm willing to fund it. I mean, if you take the Albany Greenway, those are all private property, so that's not a good example. So I'm not exactly sure how the process is
If
different.
she's
but
only requesting $10,000, which is our cap.
The community
but the-
projects.
Yeah, but the project itself is actually more valuable than that. We still have to go through the whole public selection process.
The total budget has to be under $10,000
Total
for the,
budget,
yeah. So
okay.
if she got 15,000 from outside funders, but only asked for 5 or 10 from the city, it still would
Still
go
has to
through
go
this
through it,
process
yeah.
of a selection panel versus.
Well, we
the
explained
community
this to her, so she's okay with that.
No, actually, she doesn't understand it.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Well,
But I did want to,
Absolutely.
I did want to put it on the list because it did come up last November, and the new committee members, you know, obviously weren't at that. But this, I wanted to take a picture so you can visualize it and see the actual site that was proposed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
so is this on our PAPP or
It's
not?
not. Nope, this is on the list of possible additions that have come up in the last 2 years of
Okay.
meetings that I just kind of am a reminder. Yeah, this is when it gets hard because, you know, we have all the projects that are kind of carried over, and I want to say that that's a really big list. I also should mention that community development, I saw their work plan, and they have 5 things on theirs. So
Yeah.
just to put it in perspective, they also don't have $71,000 to play with, but just to put it in perspective of that, the Arts Committee does a lot. They do a lot, and there's some really great art coming up, so, yeah. This is where the tough decisions get made.
So does anybody feel like they love the utility boxes or the mosaics on trash cans program?
I would be interested in taking a stab at the utility boxes.
Yay.
Okay,
Great.
great.
And I would be interested in trying to rope the Economic Development Committee into working on the mural program.
Okay.
Oh, that's
It's
a
kind of
really
a
good
shared thing between our two committees, because
Great idea.
some kind of outreach to the property owners and the businesses is like essential to make that happen.
So that could kind of go under economic develop, collaborate with.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll move
Yeah,
that up. Okay.
Yeah, and we've done a lot of the,
Yes,
what do you say, the groundwork as far as defining all the terms and what's a public mural and what are the steps to go through, et cetera. And we have that whole brochure already set up. We just haven't found a proper way of launching it into the city, and this would be a great way to do it.
yeah.
I don't know how interested they are in doing that sort of thing, though.
They only have 5 things on their work plan, so I think they're
Well-
really free.
Have 6.
Yeah, that's hardly it.
I would like to help identify that site for the public art installation. I will work on that.
Sorry.
Identify a site for public art installation, I will look at that.
Okay. So that's a pretty big item.
Yeah,
To say identify a site, that means by the end of 2 years, you want the committee to pick a site for public art.
right,
Is that?
That's what I'm
clear?
saying.
Okay, great.
that's what I'll do.
Is that in addition to or in conformance with the master plan?
In conformance with the master plan.
In conformance with, okay.
If we're just identifying it, it's,
We've got all those
Presenting to
sites
the-
that are there.
Right.
and maybe I just won't say one of the top 12 to keep it kind of open.
Yeah, would you just say, yeah, just make it open, but that in conversation with the Economic Development Committee and in conversation with the Solano Complete Street. You know, it's like there's a lot of pieces that of people who are really trying to do things.
Yeah.
If I could gather information from all of those places and then look.
Yeah, and the Solano Complete Streets, I have not, you've obviously seen it, it
Yeah.
looks amazing.
Amazing.
I don't know the timeline on it, but there are art components, but I wanted to have that for this meeting, and I wasn't able to get the answer that I was looking for of is there anything the Arts Committee can put on their work plan for that? But
Well, are they going to
Can always
be,
amend later.
are they going to be contacting the Arts Committee, say, for our input on that particular portion of the?
Yeah, I don't know how it's gonna work. If it's more like the Albany Greenway, where they say, you guys need to put art on the Albany Greenway, go, or if they come and more want input on, where would a great location be? We're gonna have, so I'm not sure of the exact process that it would be. But yes, definitely,
Okay.
they would not do it.
Don't leave us out this time.
No, they would not do that, yeah. Did anyone, was anyone interested in trying to put art in City Hall or possibly do art and loan, or maybe there's some other option? Public Works is not a very, it doesn't have a lot of foot traffic, but it has some great walls. So if someone was interested in doing, kind of trying to get art on loan for a year at a time, some bigger pieces, that could be something that,
That's
again,
interesting.
doesn't have a big. A friend just told me that there's actually, you can rent artwork. Do you know about this? You know about it? That you can actually rent pieces for your home, your own personal home, and you don't have to have the huge ticket price, but that you can rent it, so.
San
Anyways,
Francisco.
San Francisco,
Their rental gallery.
okay,
Yeah.
very cool, yeah. Anyway, so it's just a item.
There is some noise, about trying to develop an artist, like a workplace studio thing in Albany. There's a couple near Gilman, right? I think, you're very familiar with this.
Firehouse?
Yeah. There's one above the hamburger joint in Gilman, and there's one by the brewery over there. And they're looking at the land down there on the frontage road, by right where the Public Works building is, and trying to figure out if there's a way of getting a whole artist community moving in there with
Right.
apartments or workspaces. Is it affordable? How could it be done?
Work and rehearsal space, or just like a shop space?
Well, I think it's
Yeah.
an unformed idea,
Unformed,
but,
okay. Right,
because all the artists are being driven out of San Francisco and now Oakland. Not that Albany's any cheaper. I imagine they're going to have to go
Right.
farther away.
Are there any questions about what we just discussed?
I have two questions.
Okay.
I think I have initials for everything except that I would love someone to step up to be kind of liaison with the artist for the community projects. And then also for, if we move forward with the Creek Art for that artist as well, if there's anyone who would sign on to those two. They're lovely people.
I would do it, but the thing is, I feel like
You have a lot.
I have a lot.
I have you down for sculpture loan and amending the public art
Right.
ordinance.
But I love that Creek Art project.
I can help with the Creek Art, I think.
Okay. Okay, great. And anyone for community projects? That one's kind of moving forward, but you would help them kind of get their community group, or get a community organization, send those out, and then just kind of liaise with them.
This is because we don't really have a staff. I mean, we are our staff. We are our staff.
Yes, I think so.
That's right.
Yeah, I am staff and you are your own staff.
We are our own staff. Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, if anyone sleeps on it and wakes up tomorrow morning and wants to email me, that would be great.
That would be great.
Yep. And then, moving forward, it sounds like we'll do the BART, the utility boxes, the mural program, and I'll reach out to you just to make sure I get the wording right on these two, keep it general enough, but have a direction, and then identify a site for public art installation. Anything else? And we can move on to the PAPP. No?
No, let's move on.
Okay. So again, just the PAPP right now, it's bare bones, right? So the Creek Art, 7,500 had already been identified. There is a $7,500 match from WW. Those have an expiration date of, I'm forgetting, I believe it's the end of this year. So there is kind of an end date for that. So we do need to get that going. Sculpture loan program, I had a question about this, is that we had said 56,000, and I'm not, I'm sorry, 5,600. I'm not sure how that number was determined, but once we kind of started looking into pads, it does include a $1,000 stipend for each artist, so that's 3,000. Plaques aren't going to be that much, but you do have 3 plaques, and then the actual, I don't know, Andrew, if you can speak to that, of like what we should budget for.
Yeah, I think that
gonna be different
budget
for
is
everyone.
quite low, and especially because you're talking about the movement and the installation part of it as well. That's probably not accounted for.
The installation part, at least, is on the artist side. So
see.
the city is only responsible for the pad and being there to make sure nothing gets damaged,
Right.
but the artist is in charge of installation, whether it's renting equipment or a forklift or anything like that.
Right,
At
that's
this point, we're only looking at 2 pads,
2 pads.
but they're going to be expensive.
They are going to be more expensive than I think we have budgeted
And
for.
$2,600 or $2,000 or $1,000 each or something.
Yes.
Any
And-
estimate?
I can bring one. I don't have that offhand.
Or you could send it to
I can
me,
send
maybe,
it
just
to
an
you.
estimate? Okay.
Sure.
That would be great. And if you can be as specific as possible, given the specs that, at least what you've come up with initially, just because councils, if we're going to amend the PAPP, they're going to want to know, like, oh, this is for a 12 by 12
Sure.
pad.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add that the stipend that you're giving to the artists, and that's so great that, we're willing to do that. But the transferring of these big items are going to cost a lot, renting the trailers and moving it. I mean, that's not a one-person job for these items, so either they're getting volunteers to help with that, so that's great. But I think a lot of that is going to get eaten up into the transportation of these pieces, so just take that into consideration as well.
The artist is responsible for that, too.
They
Yes,
are.
That was the whole point.
They
They're
are.
responsible for that.
And-
But also, these people have done this before, so they know what this kind of thing costs, I'm assuming. They've all done this before.
And I believe this
pieces
program, the
outside.
way it was written up too, is that it was mirrored, I don't know if it's exactly, but Los Altos for their program as well. So our staff, I believe, contacted staff at Los Altos, and they gave a lot of their documents that they kind of used as templates. So I think the $1,000 stipend came from that. Yeah, but that's good to know too for the future if we want to amend the RFP, that the stipend would be greater and maybe there'd be more applications too. So, yeah, thank you for your input. Okay, so, great. Andrew, would you like to go by Andy?
Andy's great. Yeah,
Andy's great.
great.
Okay, good to know. So Andy will get back to us on that.
What's this item about the Public Works Maintenance Center? I just don't understand it.
I put this in here right now because I didn't have a chance to get the information of whether it needs to be in there. It was in our last PAPP. The $30,000, at last I looked, hadn't been placed physically into the fund. It was
It's supposed to be.
coming, it will be. So if it's not there, should I put it in here to account
Oh.
for it? So that's my homework. I will,
So it's 71
No.
plus the 30?
no,
No, the 30 is part of the 71.
yeah. Yeah, it was accounted for. We know where they work.
Part of the set.
We'll find out.
Your
Yes,
30
it is part of
the
it.
70.
Yeah, it was accounted for. Yeah. And then the community projects, again, this is the $10,000 that is earmarked for the mural down on off of San Pablo. Yeah. So at this point, it's $23,000 out of that $71,000 that is being spent.
And at some point, we'll hear from Jeff Bond or Ann Hirsch about things that might be, money that might be coming from future building projects.
Yeah, when did they come? October, I believe. They came to talk about things, but nothing was anywhere close. So if
Okay.
anything does get close, they definitely let the Arts Committee know.
Okay.
But, yeah, so it's one of those things you can't really depend on because it could
Yeah.
be 5 years down the road that all of these projects actually get built. So,
And this
or longer, maybe.
figure for the sculpture loan program is going to increase with.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll work with Andy and I can also, yeah.
And Mark had told me, Mark Hurley from Public Works had said to me and Karen that he would essentially hire a contractor to install the pad. So that's very expensive. I mean, I think perimeter footing pads, especially at any depth, are really expensive. And it looks like we want to put it at a pretty solid foot or 2 foot deep, maybe more, right?
But I mean, ultimately, the city has to,
That's on the city, yeah, if he's gonna hire someone, it wouldn't come out of this budget.
Okay, that's what my
Yeah.
question. It would not be reflected. Well, then we might not. Us to pay for it? Oh. Okay,
I haven't heard that yet. So,
that's what my impression was too. But he didn't say that. He just said, well, we're just going to hire that out. Okay, the other fee that we might need to put in here is we might need to pay a structural engineer.
Well, the city has a structural engineer,
Is it a person who's on salary? Oh, okay, no problem.
yeah.
so there's no
So-
reason for us to pay.
Great,
Yeah,
okay,
I
never
think-
mind. I take it back.
But you did remind me that I have a note here too, is that Cheryl and I have talked about this too, is floating the walls. But before you take a big deep breath, I have good news, I think.
Okay, good.
I hope. It's floating the walls at the foyer in the community center is that it's expensive. So we got a quote for $1,600 to float the walls in the community center so that, because they are filled, sanded, patched, and painted. It's probably not the correct order, so don't follow that.
what do you mean
But
float the wall?
so floating them is once a year in the past, they would essentially, I think, sand down all of the walls so that there weren't those little bumps that you could see for the patches. If you stand at the right angle, the right light, you can see where the holes have been. So they had been doing that, and we were informed that the city is no longer able to do that. But within the recreation budget, so money comes in when artists apply for the foyer, they give a deposit and a gallery fee, and then we give the deposit back. So there's like a pot, if you will, within the recreation department for money going in, money going out, and there's really never, ever much money in there, because it just goes all to the gallery and expenses and postcards and everything. So what we are proposing to council, it's budget time, is to put that $1,600 within there, because it is, all that money is earmarked for the gallery. So
Great.
that is, we don't have to put it in our PAPP at this point. So,
Terrific.
yeah.
Thank you.
I still don't know what floating the wall.
Floating is sanding all of the walls. So like if you drilled a hole in here and then patched it,
Floating is repairing?
the whole wall.
Whole wall.
Yeah. It's not just like a patchwork. It's doing the
They
whole wall
patch
so
it
it all
every
matches
time.
and texture, the same texture.
Oh, they gotta
Yeah.
go over the whole
They,
wall.
they do
Yeah.
it once a year, and they've been doing it for years, and now all of a sudden they have decided they're no longer going to do it for us.
So you have to pay.
So we, well.
To find the
not-
funds
We have
for
to
it.
find the funds for it, whereas before it was just
And
done.
then if you find the funds, then the city will do it?
City's gonna do it. Well,
The city would, yeah, they would be within the art gallery budget within the recreation department. That's specifically for the gallery.
So the same guy will do it.
No, they'll hire a
they're
contractor.
gonna hire
to
it
do
out?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See, I thought the same guy was gonna do it also, which was the other thing that really
Here, I'll
annoyed
take the
that
money
gallery. Put it in there, over there, and we'll give you aggravation, just for the fun of it.
So at this point, the next step is really finalizing this. So I just want to make sure that we've talked about everything enough. I'm going to probably reach out to individuals to make sure the wording is correct.
Do we finalize it at the next meeting, or do we finalize it tonight?
When are you planning on going to council?
We would probably finalize it at the next meeting because we would meet before the next council meeting.
Okay,
So, yeah. Okay.
thank you, Eva.
Yeah. This looks fun. Fun 2 years.
We're a fun group.
To return to our agenda, does anybody have anything they want to put on the agenda for next time?
I'll do the film fest postmortem.
Oh, good
Yeah.
idea.
And Jenny, you want to report on the?
I will report on the opening.
On the opening, so
Yeah.
Jenny needs to be there.
I may have something to report on the haiku program if I can
Okay.
connect with the money people.
Do you know if Rebecca has
I don't, I was gonna
reached
write
out?
to her.
Okay, okay.
I don't know whether we will have anything about the sculpture loom, but you should put it on the agenda, and if we don't,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
move on. We would like an update on community projects, I'm sure. Kind of like this one, and then sort of finalizing the PAPP and work plan language. It should look a lot like this, tonight's agenda. Anything
Can we,
else?
can we put on there just as tentative, like an Arts Economic Development Committee
Check in.
update? I mean, we may or may not have anything, but just have it. As a-
Yeah.
Do you want to reach out to them? I'm not sure when their next meeting is.
I don't know who the right person is anymore, because I think Andrea isn't on there, and the other fellow, I'm not remembering his name,
Chasey's still the,
but he just never came, he wasn't responsive. I think he was on the subcommittee. So anything you would like, let's just go through Claire at this
Okay.
point. And maybe, or the other option is maybe just go to one of their meetings.
Okay.
I think Claire and I were talking about that too, is that may get a lot done. So they come here and say, here's some ideas, just want to present them and get your
Well, they always
feedback.
meet at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
I know, it's a terrible time.
All right.
I mean, I can probably make those, but you can't make those, right? That's,
Usually not, but
Yeah.
if they're scheduled far enough in
you
advance, maybe we can.
Skip class.
We can figure it out, and maybe we just have put a placeholder on the agenda, and
Yeah, for sure.
if we have something, great, if not.
Yeah.
Sure.
And if you can just let me know a week and a half before the next meeting, confirm one way or the other, and then we can,
I have an issue I would like to discuss at the next meeting.
oh, yeah.
And actually some questions. Just in the way that I understand that the committee always has somebody from the Board of Education, right, isn't it?
You're looking-
given here?
Yeah, he's right.
So I would like to discuss a change such that we also always have someone who is an expert in the arts on the committee. Somebody who's trained, who has a professional background in the arts.
It's never going to happen.
Okay.
In the same vein as there being this requirement that somebody from the Board of Education or the school district
Yeah.
is here.
I can look into it. I don't know if that's a committee decision or that would be a city council decision as well. So I can look into that and
Okay.
if we
But
have more
this should be on
information.
the agenda, for sure.
I don't know that it's an agenda item.
Can you report back to us whether it is or not?
Yeah,
That's
if
all.
I have the information by next meeting, I will definitely
Great.
do that. I was gonna look up the Economic Development Committee and when they meet here. Did I not see it? Well, they should say.
Meeting schedule, first Thursday,
Did you see it?
5 p.m.
Yeah, there it is on the right here. First Thursday of the month at 5 PM. And just to let everyone to the future agenda items are agenda items that you are suggesting go on a future agenda, hence the name. They're not necessarily guaranteed to go on the next agenda. It's really up to the chair and staff to figure out what the agenda looks like. If there's too much, it may get pushed to another one, or maybe it's something that staff can look into and report back in a different format, so. just wanted
Right,
to
but
clear
if it's
that up.
not on the agenda, we can't discuss it.
That's true,
So
yes.
putting it on the agenda is,
Well, but there are other avenues. Some of them, make more sense to go in under announcements. If you've attended a meeting or you would like to talk about an NEA grant or whatever it is. They don't necessarily need to be an agenda item, so.
all right.
Yeah.
So are we feeling complete for tonight?
I think I'll have an update for the utility boxes.
How far out?
So, hold off on that. Hold off on that. I love that you're gonna have an update, but it has to be on our work plan to be able to do it.
So that one first.
Yeah, and then I have to go to that meeting too.
That being, yeah, I hate to say hold on, but maybe under announcements, if you can just have information. I know that in the past, we were told that the utility boxes are privately owned, and that was the kind of the barrier, but we can go past that barrier, I feel like, so. Or Andy can. Anything else for future agenda items? Otherwise,
Yeah, can you give us a report back from, remember the one time the woman from Traffic and Safety came about putting an art piece in the center strip at the San Pablo El Cerrito border?
that was a gateway.
A gateway one. Is anything happening on that?
She is no longer employed here, so
Okay.
I would have to look, but Aleda, she moved to what city? She got a job in, I don't remember what city. So I don't know where it is, but she came very early in the process.
Okay,
So
it's good
it's
to know.
kind of like the Solano Complete Streets. I'm not sure of the timeline. It could be 3, 5, or 10 years.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah, at this
I
point,
didn't wanna
there's no
check.
update, but that is one of the top 12 sites, is the
Yes.
Northern Gateway.
Okay, great.
In the same vein, super quickly, are they going to make this parklet out of, the street that cuts off?
If you can, it
Mm-hmm.
goes.
Yeah. Is that moving forward?
Yes, that is moving forward, but I don't know the timeline on that, but I can look into that. That was a different presentation, right?
That was a different presentation.
Yeah. Two separate,
Same
right.
person.
It was?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, we good?
Yep.
Anybody want to move to adjourn the meeting?
I'll move to adjourn the meeting. I move we adjourn the meeting. Sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Nice to meet you.
Is that exciting? exciting enough for you?
Yeah. Lisa, I wanted to tell you that I was one of the, I screened all